Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 318 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. It's Ryan and Adam here tonight. No team by team deep dive. This time around, we're taking a little break, little bonus episode this week because the CFL schedule was unveiled just over a week ago today, and all of its quirky glory, as I like to say. And we've got a lot we want to discuss on the CFL schedule. Take a break from looking back at 2025 to take a little sneak peek towards 2026 as we get close to the end of the calendar year here. Adam, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just finished getting dug out of the snowbank. That was the 25 to 30 centimeters of snow and plus 60-kilometer or 70-kilometer an hour winds. So, yeah, that blew everything all around. But you know what? Honestly, it could have been a lot worse. We always could see worse, always in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or, in the prairies here. So, you know what? We'll take it how we see it. Yeah, other than that, been okay. Getting ready for a big, exciting weekend of senior hockey. But first, some CFL.
Yes. So you got the blizzard too because it was snow day across Manitoba today. I think most schools were closed today, and it was frightful outside.
Yeah, no, we didn't get what Highway 2 got in Airdrie, Alberta. Apparently, they had a 100-car pileup. I mean,
Ooh.
stay driving well, Calgary, Edmonton people, but nevertheless, no, we had some terrible roads out here yesterday, more than Thursday. So, yeah, I know we time dated the countdown already for this week, but whatever. You know what? No, it was ugly, but it's actually the roads aren't bad now. Getting another dump though, I guess tomorrow. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, if you just came inside from shoveling, come warm up with a nice warm cup of Canadian Football Countdown as we take a look ahead to the 2026 CFL schedule. Of course, the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. You can learn more at gametimetv.ca or facebook.com/gametimetvmb. And if you're joining us live here tonight, send in your comments, send in your questions in the live chat. Chat's been a little quiet over the last little while, so I would love to see some more comments come in there throughout the off season as well. We do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Check out our Discord community as well. Link is in the episode description. Free to join us over there. Adam's been busy the last couple of days, sharing every single news item from across the CFL so far this week.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's been a pile of them. And I mean, that's what I've been trying to do all as I go for the off season here is try to make sure that everybody on our Discord channel knows what's going on in the Canadian Football League because, man, it's been nonstop news. When there's so many free agents, you got to expect that. And also some more coaching moves. But Ryan has officially forbid me from speaking of those because he wants to have a nice Merry Christmas.
I don't know what an offensive coordinator is. Never heard of it, especially.
Apparently, Winnipeg hasn't either.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in due time, unfortunately. But yeah, no, strictly schedule talk tonight. There's been a lot of news. We're not going to go through it all today. That'll trickle in. It's long off season ahead. Yes, we could talk about it all in the moment, but there'll be time, plenty of time before the season hits to dive into a lot of these moves at the time as well and maybe revisit them in a certain order. But Adam, you want to talk about what at the start of the show, maybe what we're thinking of doing to end off the year here on the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. On December 30th, if you want to join us, we're going to have our top 10. We're going to do a countdown because, of course, we're the Canadian Football Countdown. We got to do
Yeah, we should finally do one of those in 318 episodes, right?
It would be nice if we actually did one. So we're going to do a top 10 countdown of the biggest news stories from the Canadian Football League for 2025. If you got some suggestions, I mean, I think I might have a pretty sneaking indication of what might be number one on most people's minds. But hey, get to our Discord channel. Make sure you write it down. Let us know what you thought was some of the biggest news articles, maybe the biggest signings, maybe the biggest coaching change, maybe just a change or something that was interesting with your team. we'll take a look at them all, and we'll compile the top 10 list of all of the biggest news articles. That'll be on December 30th, roughly about the same time, probably around that 8 Central, 9 Central or 10
9 Central, 10 Eastern is our standard streaming time. And of course, all our shows come out on the audio platforms, and the video is available on demand basically shortly after the show ends. So whatever podcast platform you check us out on, you'll find it there when it drops. So stay tuned. You can also follow us on socials at CF Countdown Pod everywhere, on Blue Sky, Facebook, and X to get notified about all that as well. But let's talk schedule here tonight. There's a lot of different ways we can go with this, and I think we're just going to kind of bounce around. We're not going to go team by team, dive deep into every team's individual schedule. We'll talk about some of them, but I want to talk about more so the scheduling as a whole. First of all, I think you teased this a couple episodes ago, the announcement videos and trailers and whatnot for the schedules across the league. I love the creativity from everybody but the Toronto Argonauts, man.
Yeah, and the only team that really needs to be creative is the Toronto Argonauts, because they need to try to attract, fans. And what do? They just put a boring, here's our schedule, guys, and post a picture of it. I mean,
maybe they're like, yeah, we hate the schedule too, just take it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was real disappointing for the Toronto Argonauts. But whether you had the Ottawa Red Blacks going and showing them making off Christmas toys with Joe, or you had the Montreal Alouettes. Sorry, I can't remember, one of their defensive linemen or defensive linebackers.
I think it was Isaac Adeyemi Berglund.
Yeah, I think it was Berglund going hunting, essentially. And, there was a lot of watermelon smashed in the whole thing, kind of expected. There were some really good ones. Like my personal favorite, I know Ryan's favorite, so I'll let him talk about it afterwards. But my personal favorite was the Nathan Rourke lie detector test. That was the funniest thing I think I've seen in a very long time. Just extremely well written. You, of course, had the little bit at the beginning with them not even grabbing Nathan Rourke. They were actually grabbing, I think it was, I think
it was Findlay.
Yeah, Finley was in it. So they grab Finley, tie him down, think he's Nathan Rourke, and he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then Nathan Rourke shows up for his interview. Good little toss at Farhan Lajli in that one. So that was kind of funny. But then just the way he made fun of every team and had a little roast for each and every team was just perfect. I mean, making fun of Nathan Rourke himself by saying it's our time at the beginning was pretty funny. Whether you had the moment where he went and he seen the Ottawa Red Black sign and said, "Look, guys, I think they've had enough. We don't need to keep making fun of them." That was a good shot. The joke about Edmonton, if they have a identity, and lie detector test determined that was inconclusive. It was just so well written that I just loved the whole thing about it, and it really made me laugh. And honestly, I'll give credit to where credit's due. The BC Lions social media department has been killing it this offseason. The 12 days of Nathan Rourke are hilarious. If you've ever watched any of those, just perfect. But if we get back to scheduling, yeah, the BC Lions video of the schedule, just really well done. So, Ryan, which one did you want to go through?
Yeah, for me, it's the Bombers, easily. The retro video game that you can actually go online and play, which I did joke that we need a Let's Play video from Adam of that game coming out on the channel. But, just watching like the little video clips from it, and every single level has these little digs at the other teams. Those are the ones that I love, like the playful roasting of other teams that goes into it. That's the most fun when it comes to team social media, and great way. It's a fun way to unveil the schedule. It makes it a whole day. It makes it a whole event to go and check out everybody's. I know Adam was eagerly waiting to post the links to each of them in the Discord for people to check out. So fun day when the schedule was announced. And I think there were some other major news that was also announced same day. So it was a big CFL news day for sure. But let's dive into the schedule itself here. And I think it makes sense to start at the beginning for our discussion here, because 9-team league, one team has to have a bye every single week. Every team gets 3 byes in the season. 21-week season. Mathematically, I'm no scheduling genius, but that ends up with having to have, I think it's like 3 weeks of the season where 3 teams get a bye week in there. And that means only 3 games on the schedule. Usually it's kind of interspersed everywhere. This last year, I think the 3 games was Labor Day weekend, I want to say it was. And I really didn't like that out of it all. This year, week 1 and week 2 both make up 2 of the 3 game weeks. We'll talk about the matchups for these weeks in a little bit here, but what do you make of starting the year with 3 teams on bye in the first 2 weeks?
Absolutely crazy. I don't like it one bit. If you want to build momentum into a season and pump up the tires of what's all going to be going on in your season, you want to showcase all the teams as much as you possibly can. I mean, not only, first of all, the crazy one that I seen at first, the Grey Cup champion Rough Riders don't play until week 2. They don't play in the final week of the preseason. So they have 3 weeks off in the middle of the first start of the season, which is insane. I mean, that's one of the teams that you really want to see play right off the bat and say, are they going to be the same team as last year? Are they going to be good? Are they going to be? And you want to build those kind of storylines right away with the Rough Riders. You usually would end up like back in the day. I remember 2010, the Rough Riders had played the Alouettes in 2009. 2010, July 1st, it was the biggest game you could imagine. And boy, was that a game. If you were ever at that one, you'll always remember it. But this year, no, you know what? Who needs the Rough Riders right off the bat? They had a good rivalry with BC starting up. What do? We'll wait till the next week after. Maybe we'll do that one then. And we'll give BC a bye too. One of your most exciting player and most marketable players in the league is not playing in week 1 of the CFL season.
That one I'll give to, I think, notably Toronto and BC don't play in week 1, and that is around when I believe World Cup's time starts. I forget the exact time when the World Cup starts. The FIFA World Cup, the games are being played in Toronto and BC. So I think them being on a bye in week 1 is kind of a coincidence of that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to scroll back and check out when the World Cup actually starts here, but I agree with you of not marketing your stars with the games in week 1. I kind of wondered also if this was almost in like a competitive fairness kind of way to have every team or most teams get a bye out of the way in the first couple weeks of the season, because the last couple of years I think last year you had Winnipeg with 2 byes in the first 6 weeks or something like that, and then they played like 12 straight games. So now you're getting 6 teams on bye through week 2. Presumably that would mean by week 5, every team has had 1 bye, because I haven't verified, but I imagine none of those teams are getting a bye in week 3 or week 4 again that were already at the start of the season there. So that kind of gets 1 bye week out of the way for every team, but I agree with you wholeheartedly that this takes such wind out of the sails for me to start the season. And I'll lump into it that once you finally get to a 4-game week in week 3, 3 of the games are on Saturday for the triple header, which means there's only 3 days worth of games in the first 2 weeks and 2 days worth of games in the third week. And I've been, pretty strong in my opinion that I think I've voiced here on the show that I absolutely love the summer of CFL. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 straight days of games. You have Mondays, kind of like the take a look back at this week's games. You have Tuesday, the fantasy week resets. We have podcasts in there. Usually we'd have one Wednesday, and it's like a full summer of talking about the CFL and CFL action and all of that stuff. It feels like such wind out of the sails taken to start the season this year. And while I prefer the spread out schedule, I don't mind the triple headers every once in a while. If I was doing a triple header, I'm probably doing it week 1. Like if you're only going to do 3 games in week 1, go and make that the triple header. Start it off with a bang with a triple Saturday of your 3 games. It's not like, we have to wait 2 more days for the season to start. I'm not as starved for the 3-4 straight days of games coming into week 1 as I might be after we start getting into the cycle of the regular schedule.
100% agree. I mean, you look at how it is. You're right. It's just when you're talking about the league as a whole in the summer, there's not a lot of news articles going out there, right? There's not the NHL you're fighting against. You're not fighting against MLB has so many games that it doesn't count really. I don't think you don't have NFL that you have anything going on to right then, and you don't have basketball. So you are the show in the thing, and when you're doing it that way, it's great. You don't have an Olympics to worry about right now. You got Winter Olympics coming up, not Summer Olympics. I get it. The World Cup is a big thing, and I realize that TSN is probably one of the bigger hosts of the whole World Cup. That being said, this is maybe when you look in 2027 and say, if the TSN cannot go and prioritize us, maybe we need to find somebody that will keep us prioritized. Because you know what, I get it. The World Cup is a once in a thing, kind of a generation kind of thing, and it's big and it's huge, and you know what, there's lots of games all over the place in the United States and in Canada and in Mexico, and it's one of those things. But that being said, moving your schedule around for it is a kind of a bad idea. I get it, Ryan, like you said at the beginning there in week one, BC probably and Toronto, probably they moved it around so that they could fit around the World Cup, but that's not a good reason for me. There's another 7 or 8 or 6 or 7 home teams that could have played. They could have played games. There's nothing going on in Saskatchewan that I know of in week one of the CFL. I think it's just a blank essentially. So
no, but what I'm trying to say about BC and Toronto there is those first 6 weeks of the season, like, they can't play at home in their stadiums. And I did fact check it right now. The World Cup, I think the first game starts June 11th, which is week 2 of the CFL season. So week 1 it isn't, but presumably they're getting the fields and everything all prepped for it, maybe practices for the teams and whatnot going on there. So
yeah,
you kind of have to.
That, but what I'm getting at, Ryan, is okay, you can't play in BC, you can't play in Toronto, but you could play in Saskatchewan, play an away game then. You could play in Winnipeg, play an away game in Winnipeg. You can play an away game in Hamilton. You could play an away game in Montreal. I get it that they don't want to probably compete against the World Cup, and that's probably why they didn't do it. That's like for TV wise, because I'm sure TSN has got a lot of big interest in this World Cup. Obviously, I mean, they did the draws and everything. They obviously are broadcasting partners for the Canadian side for this World Cup, but that's what I'm getting at. If you can't manage to go and kind of prioritize the CFL and give the CFL the times when they need it, should you be the only supplier of the CFL?
Yeah, that's fair. I think on that note, I think there's one game that overlaps with the time of a World Cup game. So that's probably where a lot of these scheduling quirks come from, is exactly what you said there. And honestly, impressive that they managed to get down to only one overlap between everything here with how the schedule shakes out early in the season. Talking about week 1, that's always the most interesting thing to me looking at the schedule is take a look, who are we seeing in the week 1 matchups? Only 3 games on the schedule, but we've got Montreal visiting Hamilton, rematch of the East Final there. We got Winnipeg visiting Calgary, and Edmonton visiting Ottawa. What do you think of the 3 games that we do see in week 1 outside of what you mentioned? No Saskatchewan sucks. No BC sucks. Toronto kind of sucks. Not having them in week 1 as well. Maybe a little less than the other 2. But what do you think of the matchups that we are getting?
Hey, Edmonton, Ottawa, somebody's going to win themselves
Somebody's
a game.
Gonna win.
Somebody is going to go 1-0. I can almost guarantee that
They're going to tie.
They're going to tie. They're going to both tie, or they're both going to, that's maybe when the sun's going to explode, like Winnipeg keep saying about. I don't know. It's hard to say. Montreal, Hamilton, I mean, that's going to be a good game. Winnipeg, Calgary, I mean, it's a good game, but nothing has that real draw power to it, really, right? I mean, a Grey Cup rematch would have had a better draw, I would have think, even if they played the Grey Cup rematch in Montreal, right? Saskatchewan, Montreal had that for week 1 of the CFL. I would have loved it. I mean, you would have got some real attention. I think it would have been great. I know that they probably want to do well. So week 1, though, in Calgary, playing Winnipeg, yeah, it's a West Division rivalry. I mean, it's a good game. I don't see there being any problem with it. like I said, that one there I don't mind. The Montreal Hamilton one I don't mind as well, because those are probably going to be two of the top teams, likely. I mean, depends. We've got a long ways to go till then,
Yeah.
but I mean, those are two teams that are usually pretty high in the East Division. So a good East Division matchup, a good West Division matchup, and then Ottawa Edmonton, which, you know what, I just want to see some team just absolutely step up. And Cody Fajardo comes into Ottawa, or goes, I think it's actually in Edmonton.
No, it's in Ottawa.
Goes into Ottawa and just absolutely goes and starts his quest for Edmonton winning the Grey Cup this year. That'd be awesome. But, you know.
That was my first reaction too when I looked at this was this them saying we're sick of Edmonton and Ottawa being at the bottom of their respective standings and starting the year slow? So let's go and give one of them a win in week one.
One of them is
for years,
tops of their division. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, well, because for years, right, it was the dumpster bowl, but when these two teams would play each other, and they had their ups and downs the last couple of years and moved a little up and down the standings there as well. So not necessarily that the case, but that still sticks in your mind from the years past there, obviously, as well. Yeah, Winnipeg, Calgary, fine matchup. I mean, they typically play pretty close games for the most part. I know the Stamps swept the Bombers last year, so Winnipeg's going to be looking to correct that in week one this time around. And then Montreal Hamilton, yeah, division rivalry. If you can't get the Grey Cup rematch, at least getting the division finals rematch there to kick off the season is kind of nice as well. Any other matchups you would have, what would your ideal week one have looked like?
Well, my ideal week one, I mean, Saskatchewan, Montreal would have been one of them. Would have been probably Calgary and BC. I think that would have made a pretty good matchup. Just as they were a West finalist a year ago. Probably my third matchup would have been Ottawa Edmonton, actually. Just it intrigues me a little bit. So, I mean, that one wouldn't have been bad. And if you were really wanting me to force to do four, I hate to say Toronto Hamilton, but you know what? Get the year started off right. Get some excitement built up. And you know what? That's how you do it. You put the game in Hamilton. You know, Toronto's going to want to come in and prove that, hey, we got Chad Kelly back. We're going to be healthy. We're ready to go. And Hamilton's got Bo Levi Mitchell for another 2 years. So, you know what? It would have been a great matchup to see for an end cap for week one. But what do I know? I'm not the scheduler.
What do you think about the idea? And this doesn't work until you get a 10th team, which I believe I heard Stuart Johnson say this week that he has a 5-year vision for within 5 years to get to expansion, hopefully within Canada. So we'll see if that comes true. It doesn't really work without that because one team has to be on a bye at least in week one. This year it's 3 teams on bye, and you kind of have to rotate them through for fairness throughout the years. But start week one when there's 10 teams with rivalry matchups every single year. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Hamilton, Toronto, BC or Edmonton, Calgary, and then obviously have to figure out the rivalries, Ottawa, Montreal, and then BC with Atlantic coast to coast or whatever. Like starting the season off with a bang, or do you prefer to leave those for later in the season? I know we've got the traditions of Labor Day and then week after Labor Day for a lot of these as well. But, if you got to give a team three matchups against the same team, make it their closest rival and make it week one, in my opinion. Start the season off with some fireworks.
I don't mind it. I mean, if you're going to go and play each team 3 times, it's fine. But again, they rotate this through, right?
Yeah.
So this year, the Riders play the Lions, I think it's 3 times, and I think it might be Edmonton or Calgary, one of the two. And they only play Winnipeg twice. So that doesn't quite work if you want to try to rotate for fairness a little bit. But I don't mind it. I like the idea. Also, by the way, whoever hasn't listened to that interview with Luke Wilson and the commissioner, definitely a good listen to if you get a chance. Take a listen to that one.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't had a chance yet, but I imagine it was pretty interesting to take in there as well. Yeah, I would love to see that happen with the fireworks in week one. You mentioned ideally Grey Cup rematch week one. I agree with you. 09 and 10, that Montreal Saskatchewan week one game was probably one of the best games I've ever seen. And it would feel like a true Grey Cup rematch. This year, the Grey Cup rematch does not come until week 19 when the Alouettes and the Riders play each other. And then they play each other again in week 20. My take on this is I am going to be annoyed when in week 19, all of the storylines of this game are that it is a Grey Cup rematch, because after 18 weeks of games and injuries, this ain't no Grey Cup rematch to me anymore once you get to week 19. Like week 1, yes, there's a lot of turnover across CFL all offseason long, but presumably the two teams that made it to the Grey Cup are trying to keep their core together for the most part, you would think. Like they'll do some tinkering. Some guys will leave, of course, try to get money elsewhere. But you have probably a lot of the core coming back, especially in this case with these two teams. So if you play week 1 before all of the injuries inevitably happen, then to me that feels like a true rematch. We're picking up where we left off last season. We can go into all the storylines, is how, oh, is Davis Alexander, now he's healthy coming out of training camp, what's that going to look like in that matchup against Saskatchewan after being banged up potentially through 18 weeks of games? That we might not get any of those storylines. They might not be relevant by the time these two teams play each other anymore in week 19. So I hate it. I hate having it this late in the season. It doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard of, to be honest, because it's the third last and second last week of the season. You know what happens during that time? There's 2 or 3 teams that sometimes are 14-1 or 13-1, and they're already resting players. So if, let's say, Montreal has a great season, Davis Alexander might be sitting on the sideline, and we get some random quarterback for whatever on the Montreal side, and on Saskatchewan side, maybe the rest of the defense. I mean, who knows what could possibly happen at that time of year? You're absolutely right. It's silly to put it this late in the year. You could put it even midway through the season, wouldn't be so bad, or at least do it very, very early in the season, week 2, week 3, if you're really forced to. But I mean, make it early. Don't make it late. And this is not a good look for the schedule for sure.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was week 20 where you came to Winnipeg and watched the worst football game you've ever seen live in your life when the Riders came and rested all of their starters against Bombers because they had locked up the West. Essentially,
made it into the top 3, I'll tell you that much. It was a terrible game. And you're right. It's stupid to have that way because, and I hate to say stupid because it's not really nice to say that, but it is. It's just silly that you would have your two teams likely, again, in long off season, and you never know what can happen in injuries and everything else, but likely probably 2 of your top teams in the league this year, and they're going to play in week 19, and they did make no sense. Like last year, I loved it because Hamilton and Saskatchewan were 2 of the teams predicted to be pretty good in the season, right? And they were thought, okay, we're going to see how they line up against each other right away. It's in Hamilton. We're going to see I think it was week 2, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Hamilton Riders go into Saskatchewan. They had a little bit of a bang up there. AJ Ouellette was out after the first game. They were kind of nervous. And you know what? You looked at that and you're like, okay, this is going to be intriguing. How does Saskatchewan play on the road in a little bit of adversity against the Hamilton Tiger Cats? The Tiger Cats, again, they were a team. They just brought in all these guys from Winnipeg, and they were thought to be a really good team. So you had some storylines already built in. Week 2, I mean, other than the Saskatchewan BC game, which, again, you're going to have Nathan Rourke and Trevor Harris both yelling at each other. It's their time again. I guess. I mean, that's one story. But Toronto-Montreal doesn't really have a whole lot. Hamilton-Winnipeg, well, it's not as much as it was last year. I mean, it's a good matchup, but it's not that it was like last year where all the players were just coming from Winnipeg and you had Kenny Lawler going over to Hamilton and you had all sorts of like real intrigue in that game. This year, yeah, there's some of that still, but it's definitely diminished from over one season.
And with all of the criticism we give here, I fully understand that it is complex as heck to go and put together a schedule. Like, I can't imagine all the things that go into making this schedule, that you have to account for all of the availability of stadiums and teams and fairness of schedule and all of that. I would love to see like one of those deep dive like videos on like diving into like their process for determining the schedule. I want to see that from a league like the CFL, because I am just so intrigued. Like, what is the thought process that they go through? Like, how do they come up with these schedules? Do they throw the games into a simulation and it comes out? Do they like have this big board and some guy is standing at the front of the room and slotting in a matchup on the board and everyone's like, oh yeah, I like that, no, swap that one with this one? And like, how many hours are these meetings going on? I just want, as much as I want transparency on contracts in the CFL, I just am so intrigued. I want to know the process for making the schedule.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm not sure about a CFL, but in senior hockey, I'll give you an example of how it works in there.
Sure.
What we do is 11 teams. Essentially, we're supposed to go and have a meeting, have a sit down, do our league meeting at the beginning. And at the end of the meeting, we're all supposed to go around the room and walk around with each other and figure out how we're going to make this work. So before the meeting, me and the other manager will sit down and we'll say, okay, we're looking to get for example, the Rocanville Tigers at this time, or we're looking to get the Kenora Cobras at this time because we have this going on. We kind of know our players' schedules and everything else in the back of our head and what's all going to work. And then we got to factor in when there's Christmas time coming up and all that sort of thing. So we do a whole lot of thinking about it. And then once we get to it, to the actual meeting part, when we get to talking with all the other 10 teams in the league, it's chaos. We just run around the room going and we try to get the first guys that we really want to make sure we get their matchups with them. And then we worry about the rest and we fill them in as we go. To be honest, that's really how it goes. And sometimes it becomes chaos. It looks silly, but you know what? It works. I mean, in the end, we have to go and submit our home schedule to make sure that everybody has a home and away game against whoever we've got. And then we're done. But that's kind of how we do it. But I mean, I don't think we're going to see probably a bunch of GMs from Saskatchewan and from Hamilton and Montreal and everybody else in one room, and they all just kind of duke it out and try to figure out what they're going to do for a schedule. But maybe that is how it works. I don't know.
See, I watch a lot of reality TV competition shows, and I want to see like the GMs or somebody like that, like run a challenge like you would see in one of those shows where they got to run across the football field and there's a board there and first one gets there gets a pick of all the matchups that they can slot in for week one and they get to choose who their week one opponent is, and then you got to fill in your schedule by running back, doing an obstacle course. Like, how fun would that be?
I mean, you know what? Just thinking about it, though, you know, our general managers are getting more and more athletic as it goes. Maybe there's something to this. I mean, watching Ed Hervey try to race Pinball Clemens, race Dave Dickinson, and race Jeremy O'Day. Ugh, I don't like the riders' chances, but yeah, you know what? I would pay to see it. I mean, Survivor GM outwit, outsource, outbid. I don't know. I don't know the rules, but yeah, honestly, that'd be fun.
I would love to see it. It's coming. They're prepping. They're prepping for it.
By the way, CFL, if you're taking that idea for marketing, you're welcome.
Yeah, we want the royalties from that idea. Branding. Absolutely. Unofficially sponsored by the Canadian Football Countdown. There we go. We like to do that a lot with different things.
Officially, unofficially sponsored.
Yeah, officially, unofficially sponsored. Some more interesting scheduling quirks to talk about. How do you feel about the first round of the playoffs being on Halloween?
Way too early. I mean, you know what? I get it. They want to push everything ahead and they want to try to move the schedule further ahead because usually you get good weather in that early, like mid-May. I mean, like I said, I could see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the games so that we don't have the minus 20, 30, 40 bowls or the big snow bowls, even though you could have snow by October 31st easily enough. I know that's what they're trying to avoid, and I get it. But to me, you're in a bad time to be doing that. Right then, you have the most interest in baseball at that time. So, yes, most years, 99 times out of 100, it's not the Toronto Blue Jays in there. But I'll tell you what, when they're in there, nothing's competing with them. No league is going to compete with the Toronto Blue Jays in a World Series. The NHL can't compete with that. The NBA definitely can't compete with that. The NFL in Canada, not a chance. It's going to be all Major League Baseball. If it ever happens again, who knows? But you know what? The CFL needs to think about that kind of thing because that's in a market that if you have the Toronto Argonauts somehow make the East semifinal, you want to compete against that? I'm sure it happened this year and it didn't end well for you.
I mean, respectfully, I don't think we need to worry about the Toronto Argonauts making the East semifinal this year, but we'll get into all of that.
Watch that. You know what? This is their year. They were out last year. This year they'll win the Grey Cup.
Hey, maybe they like to do it every 2 years.
Yeah.
To me, the interesting thing with it being on Halloween is like that's a day that's already a big event for many, many people, right? Like the East semifinal, 2 p.m. Central Time, West semifinal, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Like if Winnipeg's hosting the West semifinal, I ain't going to that game because I'm not going to go and take the opportunity for trick or treating on Halloween away from my children to go watch the football game, right? Like if we're going to that game for 5:30, that's going like you're missing Halloween. And sure, like a lot of people don't celebrate Halloween, absolutely, and a lot of people are. A lot of the fandom of football is adults who may or may not have kids, right? And so it doesn't impact those, but you are going to have some people that are impacted where it's like, well, now it's at the same time as this event that you kind of frequently have those sorts of obligations with. So it's very interesting to see it showing up on Halloween. That happens to be the quirk of it. Also, being they do playoff games on Saturdays. That is the Saturday in the schedule and how things fall with moving the schedule earlier. But yeah, I don't love having the games on Halloween. Grey Cup this year is on November 15th, so that's around the same time. I think it was the 17th this year. So I know there's been talk about moving the season earlier yet. I don't think that's happened yet this season. Maybe that's coming in 2027. I can't remember. I thought there was some discussion on that, but it doesn't really seem outside of just the overall calendar year kind of, you shift a little bit based on the days and when the weekends are. I don't notice any shift too much earlier in that.
No, I don't think you can quite get any real earlier than that, especially again, you still have to have those buys in there in the regular season. You still have to have those spaces in there. It's going to be that's kind of almost early enough. And the other thing is, May the 18th is our first preseason game. It's Saskatchewan Calgary, I think it is this year. That's already like, most years I always say I've done pretty good for seeding if I can finish before the CFL gets going. There's no way I'm going to finish seeding before May the 18th this year. So stop putting pressure on me, Stuart Johnson. I mean, it's early enough as it is. But no, honestly, I think that works out pretty good. November 15th is a good time to end it. But I sure would like it to be November 1st. It would just make it a lot easier for a lot of people. And there should be that flexibility that if you have a major holiday, again, Halloween, you're right, is a pretty big one for younger families. And that's what you're trying to attract, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're going to try to do that, make it November 1st, make it a Sunday. It's fine, whatever. I know that you're going to be competing against the NFL. You know what? You're only competing against one game. And to be honest, probably the CFL game probably is going to get a lot more intrigue.
I like that we did get a YouTube comment in from Bill in Burlington. Hello. I'm sure there are lots of variables: stadium availability, stat holidays, travel distance, whether a team has just had 1 or 2 road games, special rivalry games like Banjo Bowl, Labor Day. Yes, so much goes into the CFL schedule, which kind of makes it a little bit silly that we're nitpicking on all of these things here today. Because, like, if they correct all those things, there's probably going to be a ton of other things for them to nitpick on, right? Like, for us to nitpick on by changing things in the other direction. But it's always an interesting thing to look at what comes out on the schedule every single year. Another quirk that I've never seen before, week 21, there are 2 games scheduled at, I believe, 2 p.m. Central Time on the schedule at the exact same time. And everyone thought, did they make a typo? No, they did not. They did not make a typo. There are 2 games happening at the same time. I have to wonder if one will be on TSN, one is on CTV, and maybe this was a ploy to like see what that kind of model looks like about splitting them between the 2 stations. And if you're going to do that, you're probably going to do it in week 21 where half of these games don't matter. Maybe this was just their way of let's yada yada this meaningless final week of the season and get to the playoffs. But watch, like, it's Edmonton, Saskatchewan, Ottawa, Hamilton. Watch both of these be crucial to determine playoff matchups in week 21, and they're happening at the same time.
Yeah, well, it could happen, especially you're right. Edmonton, I think, is going to be one of those teams that's going to be kind of just clawing their way into a playoff spot if they can. And playing Saskatchewan, I mean, that's going to be a big game no matter what. And then the other one, yeah, Ottawa, Hamilton. Ottawa might be clawing their way also into trying to get a playoff spot as well. So both of those could be a very interesting one to kind of watch. And if there is only one of them being broadcasted, that would suck. But you're right. I think they've got some plan there, right? They're going to go and they're probably going to go and say, okay, CTV is going to do the Hamilton Ottawa game and TSN is going to do the Edmonton Saskatchewan game, and they're going to split it up. Or they might go regional as well. I mean, I don't think that'll be the case. I mean, again, they could go west of Manitoba is going to do this game, and east of Ontario East is going to do this game. We've seen it all the time with Hockey Night in Canada that the Montreal in the Quebec region watches the Montreal game, and then everybody else from Ontario West watches the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they might be doing the same thing here and just seeing how this works. Myself, I really hope they aren't going to do something like that because you need all eyeballs at all times and all games that you can get as far as I'm concerned. But you know what? That one there I won't argue with and say it's a bad idea. I think it's just, you know what? They're getting creative and trying to figure out maybe what will work and what won't work for them going into the future. And especially, don't forget, I've said it once already this week, it's a contract year. For the after this year, it's the contract's up for TV. So maybe they're showing that, hey, we can handle, if you guys expand and get to 10 teams, we can do something to make it work for everybody.
Yeah, I like that for sure. And yeah, like I said, it could just be yada yada also for the final games, because those were, again, some of the worst games we have seen was those week 21 matchups, but they might not be, and that's the interesting part of that. And no matter what, there will be people that still do not understand the breakdown of the 5 TSN channels and get lost trying to find either of these games no matter what, and question why the same one is shown on 3 different channels. But maybe one day that will be made a little bit more clear what the TSN channels are for. Final scheduling quirk for me, week 15. No games on Thursday, no games on Friday, no games on Sunday, but there are 4 games on the schedule, and they all happen to be on super duper Saturday. 9 straight hours. Well, no, sorry. 12 straight hours of CFL football. I was looking at the start times, 12 and 9. But the game won't end until midnight Central Time. So 12 straight hours of CFL football on Saturday, September 12th. This happens to be Banjo Bowl weekend. So you get the rematches Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. You get the rematch Edmonton, Calgary from the week before. You get a rematch of BC, Montreal, and then Hamilton's on a bye, but the Ottawa plays Toronto in the early game that day, which also happens to be one of the Argos' first home games of the year. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Do you like 4 games on one day? How realistic, what's the percentage chance that you're watching 12 straight hours?
I mean, this is when they start launching CFL Red Zone and they do 12 hours of uninterrupted CFL football? No? Okay. Well, it was worth a try. And also, boy, that would be awkward if they only turn on the cameras just when it gets to the red zone. That wouldn't be cool either. But first things first, it's never the Banjo Bowl anymore because you guys didn't give us a trophy. It's now the Labor Day rematch, and that's it. It's ruined all its name after that. Secondly, you know what? Again, I think this is more of this is contract year, and after this year, we're going to see what works and what doesn't. We're going to make a little bit of an experiment here. Does 12 straight hours of Canadian football coverage attract a lot of people? Maybe there will be some guys that'll just sit there and watch all 12 hours of it. Like, I mean, there's guys that watch NFL once, when it's in Europe. They'll watch it right from when it leaves England all the way till 8:30, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night watching the Sunday night football game. So maybe they're just seeing and you know what? I'm giving the CFL the benefit of the doubt here. But you know what? I don't like it myself, but in another way, I could see maybe what they're up to. They're just seeing what will work and what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. And if all of a sudden this completely flops and the third game of the week, I don't know, it's Edmonton, Calgary? Yep. There's nobody watching that game because they're already bored and out of there. BC Montreal, that's a pretty tough one also because there's no real rivalry there that I know of, although two dynamic quarterbacks. So maybe if they do their storylines right, they might be able to push that. But you know what? It'll be interesting to see. I'll see what happens here. We'll see what the ratings are after that game. I think that's what the CFL is up to too. They want to see what the ratings are.
Yeah, I definitely won't be able to watch 12 straight. I've done the 9 hours a couple of times, I think, but I just feel gross after that, honestly, where I'm like, I need a detox after sitting there watching that nonstop.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here. So 11 a.m. Central, so that'll be about 9 a.m. our time in Saskatchewan, because at that time I think we're 2 hours behind the East.
Well, it starts at noon Central, so that would be 11 a.m. Yeah, 11 a.m. start your time, I believe, going until probably 11 p.m. I guess.
Well, that'll work perfect for me because at 11 a.m. I've already got the combine greased up. I've got everything ready to go. I'll be starting to combine, and I will just go on to whatever radio stations are hosting the games. And I've got 12 straight hours of stuff to do then. So I'll be listening to all 12 hours. I'll tell you that.
I have mixed feelings on it. Like, I'm open to trying it. It sounds like if they market it well, it'll be a really fun day and maybe there's some special event. I love a day like this from a betting perspective. We talk about betting on this show as well, because often like player props and stuff don't come out until the day of. So you can actually like do a little bit more parlay stuff, because all of the games are on the same day. Fantasy wise, all of the depth charts will be out before the first game of the week that week, which is kind of nice in that sense as well. So I like that aspect of it. Hopefully you don't have 12 hours of plans that day, so you get to at least catch one game. I do not love, though, that there's one day of football that week. That means there's like 2 or 3 extra days compared to normal, that there's no CFL to watch in there. That week always feels extra long, because granted, the week before is on a Monday with the doubleheader because of Labor Day, so that takes, I guess, a little bit of the delay out of that. That helps. I'll give it that. And then I didn't get to go to the Banjo Bowl this last year, but typically I had gone in years past. And I didn't love when they did the triple headers on that day, because one game starts at noon, one starts at 3, one starts at 6. Well, to get to the one at 3, I'm leaving an hour and a half, 2 hours early. So now I'm missing, a good chunk of the first game. And then I'm driving home from the middle one afterwards and I'm missing a chunk of the second game. So if I am that type of person that wants to watch everything all out in the same day, can't really do that if I'm driving to and from the stadium for the most part. So I don't know, mixed feelings on it, but I'm willing to try it once here or there. I agree with you. I think you've hit the nail on the head with the sentiment that a lot of this season is trial and error for the CFL scheduling wise. And I think this is one of those things that why not give it a try and see how it plays out.
One other little thing to put on that. I see people already going and trying to figure out if they can make every single game for the kickoff. If they had a private jet, you might be able to. Otherwise, I think it was X-Pegger. I think it was Chris from his thing there. He has, I think, the Guinness World Record for making the most Canadian football games in the least amount of time. Good luck. I really hope you do it, because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Like I said, kudos to you. Hope you make it somehow work, but boy, I don't see that happening.
No, I really don't see that either. The other thing we already touched on, this is my last topic, unless you have any other odds and ends afterwards as well, is we've touched on the impact of the World Cup a little bit so far. The two teams most notably impacted, the BC Lions and the Toronto Argonauts. And they have to work around the fact that their home fields are being used by the FIFA World Cup for, I think it's like 4 to 6 weeks schedule somewhere in the middle of the season. We touched on this earlier in the season when it was officially announced what both teams were doing. BC decided they're going to move their home games down the road to somewhere still pretty close to home. Toronto, on the other hand, instead of going to Guelph, Kingston, anywhere like that, has decided to essentially sell their home games for 3 of their home games to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Winnipeg Blue Bombers, to the point where they're playing their 3 home games against those teams in their opposing teams' stadiums. And it is a night and day difference between these 2 schedules and how they have to work around the World Cup here. The Toronto Argonauts schedule is a disaster zone. I don't know how closely you've looked into it so far, but a couple of things that stand out to me for it, and the browser's having a hard time loading the page right now, but I think it was 1 home game in their first 10 games and 2 home games in their first 15.
It's brutal. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the 2 teams that you sold, 3 teams technically, that you sold your game to essentially are 3 of the teams that could probably get the loudest and probably the most excited for the alleged away team. I mean, Saskatchewan is going to pack the stadium. They're going to be all in green, even though they should be in blue. And I mean, I'm going to go in blue just to go and, support the Argonauts that day. I don't care. That game I'm going to somehow. Just so I can go and say I'm a diehard Argos fan since 2026. For 1 game anyways. But you know what? It's the same thing in Winnipeg. I don't care. Toronto is in for it this year. And it's so contradictory to what we see in BC. Amar Doman did whatever he could to make sure that it was going to work out the best situation that he could be for the BC Lions and their fans. The Toronto Argonauts, on the other hand, raised their prices apparently $60 a seat for season tickets. Like, really? While they're down, you're just going to go and slap them while you're at it? I mean, geez. So, you know what? No, honestly, I applaud BC for what they did. They did an awesome job of going out to Kelowna, making it exciting. They're going to do some special events there. They're going to do all sorts of little things, and they're going to just feel like they're just at home. They're not going to feel like they're away from home. It's going to be all BC Lions fans there. There might even be more BC Lions fans than usual because that means that probably they'll sell out the seats earlier, and, the away team, Calgary, or I'm not sure the other one, if it's Winnipeg or I'm not sure of the second team that BC plays in Kelowna, but guaranteed the BC Lion fans are going to sell those seats out and they're going to be there instantly for those games. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But the Toronto guys, I feel so bad for the Argonauts. I mean, like I said, it's not going to be fun. You're going to be playing in the away locker. No way Saskatchewan and Winnipeg are going to say, you know what, here, have our locker rooms too, because, that's just as nice as we are. I guarantee you, Winnipeg is not going to say, you know what, we'll give you our locker room. We wouldn't give it to Saskatchewan, but we'll give it to Toronto. No, it ain't going to happen. So, you know what? Toronto's going to be in an away locker room. They're going to be practicing on the road. It's just going to suck, plain and simply, for the Toronto Argonauts. I feel bad for their fan base. They deserve better than what they're getting. And honestly, and not only that, then you sell it to a rival of all things and give Hamilton an extra home game. I mean, do they need any more help? I don't think they do, but I guess. No, honestly, feel bad for the Argonauts. I feel bad for the players. I feel bad for their fans, especially. They don't deserve this. This is just brutal. And yes, I honestly mean it. I will be at that Saskatchewan-Toronto game, and I will be cheering for the Argonauts and starting Argo chants.
I love it. Richard in the chat, shout out Richard. He was on our BC Lions deep dive a couple weeks ago, but go back and check that out. Asked a good question that really played into this for me with the Argos, which is, what is Toronto's record going to be by the time they have their first home game? Like, this is a team that, a lot of fans felt burned by the situation. Bill was in the chat talking about Toronto fans getting short-changed with this as well. I agree. And a lot of people felt burned to begin with. This is a team that struggled to make new fans, bring in new fans. Like, how are you going to get the bandwagon fans in October, when with your stacked home games at the end of the season, when potentially after spending the first 3 months of your year on the road with new head coach, Ryan Dinwiddie's gone off to Ottawa, so new head coach, definitely some uncertainty. This team struggled greatly the year before. Spend 3 months on the road, play home games in other teams' stadiums. Like, they might be out of the running for the playoffs by the time they get back to their home stands at the end of the season. Is that really going to bring in the fair weather fans? Probably not a whole ton. So this is, besides, sure, they're going to make their money for selling these games to those teams. That's what MLSE cares about the most. But in terms of growing the game in Toronto, where I think they have had some moments over the last couple of seasons, some bright spots, I would say, where they brought in some more fans, this doesn't add up very well for me for this team's approach to the schedule here. And I get, at the end of the day, it's a money thing for them, but it's going to be a rough season for that team. I really, spoiler alert, and kind of hinted at it with my talk earlier about the, do we really have to worry about Toronto playing on Halloween? I don't think so. I'm picking them to finish fourth in the East Division this year because I don't have confidence in the plan for this team right now. They've committed to Chad Kelly being their starter going forward. We have no idea what to expect from him after their injury situation, new head coach. Everybody's got to play on the road. Like, that's going to get tiring. I know you're professional athletes, sure, but we hear talk all the time about a balanced schedule, and this is one of the least balanced schedules for a team I've ever seen. That being said, the great Derek Taylor, lover of stats, just like myself, Bombers radio play-by-play man, he did his stats on amount of rest in the CFL schedule team by team this year. And I think the Argos actually have the most compared to their opponents, where like days off in between games. So yes, they have the grueling schedule on the road, but they maybe get a little bit more rest time to counteract that. Does that affect a whole lot? I don't know.
The only problem with getting all this rest is it's good, but where are you going to be resting? Probably in a hotel room, somewhere away from home. You're not going to be seeing your girlfriends or your wives or your kids or whatever in Toronto because you're going to be on the road. You're going to be in Saskatchewan. You're going to be in Winnipeg. You're going to be in Calgary. You're going to be in Hamilton. You're going to be everywhere except for in Toronto. And I don't care what anyone says. It's a tough thing to be away from home for a very, very, very long time. Again, it's the logistics part of it as well. Equipment, you don't have the poor. Yes, I know they're probably going to do all their best to try to make sure equipment is put together as well as they can, but having that ability to go and just walk into your locker and grab something and come out is not going to be in the Toronto Argonauts' favor. They've got to have everything packed and they got to have everything organized. And I guarantee you, their equipment managers are going to be stressed to the max. Their video guys are going to be stressed to the max. Where do they get places to watch video coverage for the video tape on the team that they're going to playing next? How do they practice properly in out-of-town stadiums all the time? You can't just go and jump in and say, okay, well, I'm going to go back to Toronto and practice. No, there's no Toronto to practice in this year. It's a terrible situation no matter what you do. To be honest, if this MLSE, they've just proven that they do not care about anything other than the bottom dollar. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is. It's going to suck. It's not helping the CFL one bit whatsoever. And I really hope that the CFL looks into this eventually and says, you know what? We've got a new David Braley or a new guy on our hands like this. We need to do something about the ownership in the Argonauts. But for this year, again, I'm going to commend him afterwards and I'm going to cheer him on because, man, I hope they do something. But, yeah, the odds are against them. It don't matter if they have the rest or not.
I feel like I've had a lot of negativity so far. Like, this is my airing of grievances, so to say, I guess, on the schedule here tonight. So to round it out, like a couple of positive notes for me. You just mentioned the BC Lions. I think the way they've navigated all of this is pretty good. Like, they have the same limitation to some standpoint, and I think they don't have a home game till week 4, but one of those weeks is a bye week. So they play 2 on the road to start the season, then they get 2 home games, and that's essentially their World Cup window there. and that's offset. And so I don't expect that team to really miss a beat due to this limitation in their schedule as much as I do with Toronto. So happy to see that for the BC Lions. I haven't dug too deep into every team's individual schedule this year, but I did look at the hometown Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Infinitely better schedule than last season. Last season was such a weird schedule where by week 10 they played 3 or 4 teams only because they had 2 bye weeks and they had like everything was a home and home series / 3 games against Calgary or something like that. This year for Winnipeg, the only home and home they have is Labor Day Banjo Bowl with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I'm happy to see that. I don't mind a home and home series every once in a while. I think they are interesting gamesmanship for sure, but it does take a little bit of the wind out of the sails where if you only play a team 2 times, okay, we're going to play them back to back in weeks 2 and 3, like Winnipeg, BC last year, for example, and then we're not going to play them again for the rest of the season. I don't love that. I love a more balanced schedule. Winnipeg's got good bye week placements this year. I think their schedule is one of the stronger ones I imagine this season. Any other quick last minute odds and ends for you on schedules?
Not a whole lot else, really. Yeah, you're right. Winnipeg has a very good schedule this year, especially with the buys, how they split them up and do everything for them. I mean, every other team, really, I mean, they've got their kind of ups and downs. Ottawa, Edmonton, we talked about earlier, they play a lot early in the season, so that's good. I mean, you're going to get some momentum with one of those teams to try to build something, I would hope. If you look at the Edmonton schedule, the way that it's drawn up, they play a lot of West Division teams. They play Ottawa and then Montreal, so that's a good challenge right off the bat. Then I think they go to Winnipeg or they play Winnipeg and then BC. So they've got some real good challenges right off the bat. They're going to prove their mettle early. And you know what? Hey, if they can get on to some of those teams and jump them early, Edmonton might be one of those teams that'll be fun to watch with how their schedule goes. Other than that, no, the biggest thing, like I said, I was pretty negative this tonight too, especially because, again, the league champion Rough Riders don't even play in week 1, which is silly to me. And you're right, the one that really disappointed me for sure was the week 19-18 matchups there, or week 19-20 matchups for Montreal and Saskatchewan. That was silly. But
quick note on that one actually as well. That first one, Saskatchewan in Montreal, is the Thanksgiving Day game at noon on the Monday between the teams. So they're in doing so also kind of killing that Thanksgiving Day tradition between the Montreal Alouettes and the Ottawa Red Blacks that's been happening for years upon years now, which I don't love that. I mean, maybe that's the premier game on Thanksgiving Monday. They want the Grey Cup rematch, but I don't agree with it.
Well, that one, and also I think there was always the Calgary BC match. They always said that one was the Turkey Bowl as well, because they always, I think, if not, or Gravy Bowl, I think is what BC always call that.
I don't think that was specifically Calgary. I think it's just BC's last home game before Thanksgiving. They always called Gravy Bowl. Richard's in the chat. Richard, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't know if it's officially a rivalry with Calgary. That also reminds me that this past year, Calgary introduced the Stampede Bowl when they had their game against Winnipeg during the Calgary Stampede. I think it's against Toronto during the Stampede this year. So I guess the Stampede Bowl is not a rematch between the same two teams anymore. They beat Winnipeg once and said, we're taking the trophy, and now we're going to go find a new opponent worthy of the challenge. Who can live up to the challenge to steal the Stampede Bowl from the Calgary Stampeders?
You know what? Honestly, though, it gives some excitement for it. And you know what? I love things like that, the Stampede Bowl. I used to like the Banjo Bowl until they won't give out the Banjo Bowl. But we won't get into that tonight because otherwise we'll be here for another 2 hours. But you know what? Little things in the schedule like that are kind of cool. The Gravy Bowl, the Stampede Bowl, the Labor Day Classics. I mean, those obviously are big things that always everybody looks forward to every year. You know who we're playing, and you always have it circled on the calendar who we're playing, and you know when we're playing them. It's always Sunday at 2:00 or Sunday at 5, and away you go. It's always the same team. That part there is some of those things that I hope the CFL never forgets about, that people actually do kind of watch those things and enjoy those kind of little quirk games, especially. I would like to see the Atlantic Bowl, to be honest, and also the Pacific Bowl. I think they had both of those at one time, right? I mean, They were trying to get that excitement.
No touchdown Pacific or Atlantic this year, I believe. That's a really missed opportunity to me. Like when we were trying to figure out the logistics of Toronto and BC's schedules for this year, I talked about this a lot when that was announced a few months ago. Have them play their home and home series during those 6 weeks of World Cup games, one on a destination game out east, one on a destination game out west. Make Argo's home team out east, Lions home team out west. Maybe do one at the start of the month, one at the end of the month. Would have been fun. I think they could have put some novelty into all of that for sure.
Exactly. And I mean, there is a lot of fans in the East and there's a lot of fans in the West in Victoria that like to watch one CFL game. It's a novelty. And you know what? They didn't have one in the East last year. It would be back. I think it would take off bigger and better than it always used to. And especially now that the commissioner did mention that 10th team thing, I think you maybe would want to be experimenting with something like that. But that being said, I did mention it earlier, and I'll say it once more, is we did see a lot of talk about, I talked a lot about the TSN contract coming up next year. So this is a good experiment this year. That's what I'm going to consider the schedule about. It's an experiment to see what TSN can do for the CFL and what the CFL wants to do going forward into this new contract when they go and start negotiating with TSN. They're going to see, does it work to have 2 games at one time? Does it work to have 4 games in one night or one day and we just dominate Saturday? I mean, like I said, that might be an option for them as well. And I'm sure that's what they're up to, is they're seeing what works best for their fan base. And total applause to the CFL for doing such a thing. I know you're taking a chance. Hey, that's also a good idea, Richard, in the chat I just read there. Can't believe the Lions and Argos aren't playing during the World Cup, called the World Cup Bowl. Yeah, I'm sure that would be a copyright infringement of some sort. But anyways, also they gave that prize to the President of the United States. We can't even use that prize
anymore. Yeah, we can't get the FIFA Peace Prize now.
Maybe next year, Ryan. Maybe next year. Anyways, but no, honestly, like I said, I think it's an experiment this year. I applaud the CFL for trying something different. And as much as some of the schedule parts we don't like, I think I can see what they're up to. They're trying to learn and trying to see what makes the CFL tick and what makes it better. So kudos to them.
I couldn't have summed it up better. And to that, I'll just add, schedule makers, we still love and appreciate you for doing the job that we don't have to do to try to sort out this mess. And hey, they got people talking. It got us doing an hour and 10-minute episode of the podcast. We thought maybe we'd fit this into an hour, wrapping up. We're starting to wrap up now. We'll still get it under the hour and a half that we typically end up going to, I hope, unless the wrap up takes 20 plus minutes, but hopefully not. They got us talking about it, and they got us talking about it when it was announced on that day. The way everything was announced, they got it talking about us now. They'll get us talking about it throughout the offseason into the season. And so that's a net positive, even if there are points we don't like about the schedule. But let's start getting into wrapping up the podcast here. Again, the plan tentative. We're getting into the holiday season. No more. We're going to pause on the team-by-team deep dives until the new year. I don't want to try to get a guest in over the holiday season. So that's on pause until the new year. We've got 4 teams done so far, I believe. Go back and check those out. The most recent one just recorded Tuesday night with Rick from Hamilton Sports Central and the Canadian Football Central, talking Hamilton Tiger Cats. That was a great one. We had BC Lions, Montreal Alouettes, and Saskatchewan Roughriders recently as well. So go back and check those out. The podcast feeds and the YouTube feed, you can listen to all of those over the next couple of weeks as well. And then we're going to try to, the week after Christmas, last week of December, first week of January, we're going to try to come back, as Adam mentioned off the top of the show, tentatively planned December 30th for the Canadian Football Countdowns, counting down the top 10 CFL stories of 2025. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe over on our YouTube channel. Hit that little bell or whatever it is to get notifications for when we are going live with that. You can find us on socials as well at CF Countdown Pod on X or Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod and Blue Sky as well at CF Countdown Pod there. Check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on X, Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on X, or alternativefootballnetwork.com. You can find me at Cooper Trooper 42 if you really want on X and Blue Sky. Adam, what you all got going on these days?
Hey, it's rivalry weekend in the Saskatchewan East Hockey League. All the teams are all playing their rivals, and it's all home and homes. I think it pretty well
And it's
this
week
weekend.
19.
Hey, no, it's not week 19. It's prime time right now for all these teams. Your 5-1 Theodore Buffaloes are taking on the 6-2-1, or no, the 4-2-1 Kenora Cobras. Who, yeah, if you know anything about them, we don't like them. They don't like us. We get along quite fine. So we go to Kenora tomorrow. We come to Theodore on Saturday. We have a big cabaret and a party at the end of the game. So, hey, if you're listening to this and you're in the area, come on out and watch some good senior hockey. Because honestly, it's been exciting. I think almost every team has been almost in every game. Maybe not Priestville, but we won't talk about them. But no, honestly, at Adam Stewart 1, if you want to check me out on Twitter or on X, you can find me over there. You can also go and you can check me out at Farmer in Sask. Hopefully, you guys want to check that out as well. I usually have pictures of me pushing snow right now. So, I mean, riveting stuff, I know. But, and also, hey, if you want to talk to me or Ryan, best way is probably our Discord channel. Make sure you check us out there. We are going to be, again, we said we're going to do the top 10 list. We need your suggestions, though, on what was some of the top newsmakers of the 2025 season and, for the whole 2025 year. So by all means, give us some messages, give us some comments. We'll take a read of them. And if nothing else, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and whatever else you're celebrating. Have a good happy holidays, everybody.
Well said. Yes. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you as well, Adam. Great year of podcasting here in the Canadian Football Countdown. Let's close it out with one last show, hopefully to end the year to come. So look forward to that. Thank you for everybody joining us live. Thanks to those who sent in their comments in the live chat tonight. Got some fun ones along the way there. And whatever podcast platform you watch or listen to us on, help us out a little bit. Why don't you? Christmas present for us from you. Sure. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, share the show with your friends, share with your non-friends, share with that distant relative that shows up at the family gatherings over the holiday season that you weren't expecting to see there. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Adam, I'm Ryan saying happy holidays. Thanks for listening. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.